I also would like to introduce Jakob Rossmann, who's here with us today as well. He's a filmmaker, he's also teaching here at the school, and you will see some of the work we did together in this project. I will present you a project or a process or a series of projects developed in the less or more last 5 years, circulating around now it's an energy saving mode, fits to our topic, circulating around, well, something different than the term sustainability. And I will try to, well, explain a little bit what this term, which is in German Folgenlosigkeit, which could be translated as no consequences or inconsequentiality, what that means to me. You see here a picture from a short film made by Jacob, where I'm trying to explain this term to sheeps, as you can imagine, without any consequence. They did not really react on what I was telling them. And I like the term, or I don't like the term sustainability, or especially its German word Nachhaltigkeit, its German version, because it's coming not from an ecological background in Germany, but from an economical background. This German term Nachhaltigkeit, which could be translated in something like something that lasts long, derives from the 18th century, when Karl von Carlowitz had the great idea that for every tree which was cut down, you should plant a new one. But he was not doing that because he wanted to, because he loved the forest so much, or the trees. He was doing that because he was an expert in mining, and he realized when they don't have wood anymore, then they can't do mining because they need the wood to bring the silver out of the stone. And so his interest was not an ecological one, his interest was an economic one. And I think that's something what you still feel when people are talking in Germany about Nachhaltigkeit or sustainability. And so I had the impression that it could be interesting to talk about inconsequenceness or inconsequentiality or no consequences for 3 different reasons. I think this term has 3 different layers. The first layer is that we're living in a time with the false promise or the fake promise of capitalism that we can live our lifestyle without any negative consequence. Even so, we now realize that there are consequences. The promise is still with Tesla, with electricity, with windmills, with the right technology, we can live the way we are used to. And I think that's not true. So that's a false promise of no consequences. The second, let's say, intervening or superposing layer in this term is an experience I think everyone has who is a political or cultural activist, the impression that you do something and there are no results. There you can be in Fridays for Future, you can make critical art. If you're lucky, a gallery sells it for a lot of money, but changing something in society, no, mostly that's not the result. So there's again a negative experience of no consequence, even so you eager fighting to change something. And the third level is the utopian one, that maybe something like targeting for inconsequence or targeting for no consequence could be something positive, like freedom, like justice, like all these great ideals of enlightenment, which also never fulfill. I mean, we will never be without consequences. And for sure, in all what we are doing, we are looking for some consequence, for some results. But maybe it's sometimes better not, well, for all these success stories we know, that brought us into the situation we are now in. There are all these dreaming that there is a result of what I'm doing. Maybe to say, okay, step back, maybe it's better there are no results. No negative results, no positive results, no results at all. And about these three levels, the project I'm presenting to you now is about, or is trying to deal with. There are different elements, and they don't, so I will present you a novel, I will present you some film pieces, an exhibition, an urban project, but they're not the result of a plan. I'm in my work process-oriented, and they happen as part of a process. And for this project, the beginning, the starting point was an open call by the German Federal Agency for Environmental Affairs in Austria, has I think the same name, Umweltbundesamt. And I made a call that they were looking for a curator for a project they called, I think it was Nice, Perspective, Beautiful Bella Vistas, something of this shitty sound of politicians. And the idea was to bring together politics and artists and to look what is kind of a main ground or something, or how could culture influence politics and so on. And I was a bit skeptical about these kind of projects, but then I said, okay, if I don't apply, or old people like me don't apply, then you can't later argue that these projects are not good, because, well, if you don't apply, then you can't argue against it later. So I applied, and I get commissioned to do this project, and I started with a workshop with some artists. And one of the themes in this workshop was that there's one big difference between politicians and artists, that we expect from the work of politicians that there are results, but that we want to have as artists the freedom that our work don't have results. So this contradiction between political action and cultural action was in there, and so I developed a project about inconsequenceness or inconsequentiality, and to a certain point then the Umweltbundesamt said, okay, thank you, nice to meet you, we want to have results in our work, so we didn't continue, but I continued the project then with other people and other organizations we maybe will get to know. But this was a starting point, which was also very important for me. So I will start with a novel. It's called Fest der Folgenlosigkeit, Festivity of Inconsequenceness, published in May last year. And it's telling the story of a couple of people dealing with art and environmental issues. One of the main figures is a curator who is commissioned by a foundation to found a new museum, the Museum of Ecological Art. He found out that the foundation is financed by the German mining industry. He has an inner conflict, should I do, should I not, and so on. Another person is from the European Agency of Environmental Design, a bit an advanced version of what we know as environmental agencies. There's an artist involved whose artist work is to collect CO2 and to stove it, and and there's an activist who's occupying a forest who is in danger because of the mining company who's financing the foundation, and so on. So you can imagine all these conflicts, and I'm trying to tell their story. So this is, if you would be a German audience, I would now read something, but due to the fact that you're all, or most of you are English speaking, I skip that part. But for me, it's always interesting to work with fictional elements, because I think, or I try, or I hope that I can kind of focus on some conflicts. So this is the fictional part of the novel, and then there's a second layer, which is non-fictional, where I'm describing my situation, my project with the German Environmental Affairs Agency, my cooperation with Jakob, for example, my sentiments during Corona, feeling of depression, of having no results in the work, and so on. So there are different levels which are interwoven. So this is one part, and a second part, which started earlier, but because of to write a novel takes some time, was a grant. I made a public call called Grant for Doing Nothing. How does a life look like which has no negative results? And we had to have 3 of these grants for €1,006 each. And we made a call in Die Zeit, a very common German newspaper. And I thought that there may be, 300 applications from some artist or something. And we received 2,500 applications from all over the world, which could mainly be differentiated into 4 different categories. Conceptual categories, so that's a paradoxy to make a call where you have to apply for doing nothing. So some of them were empty, some of them were angry, and so on. The second part was what you expect from not eating meat, not driving a car, not whatever, so doing these kind of things. And there was a huge part about changing communications. A lot of young people, maybe 15, 16 years, writing, I want to stop using social media, except Instagram or except WhatsApp or something like that. But also people saying, I want to stop to talk for 10 days and have a sign here, I'm listening. So changing of a communication attitude. And the third part, fourth part was a lot of, I think most of them female, about sexual forms of sexual connotation, like stop using lipsticks, stop shaving, all these kind of things. It was for me very interesting. Also more extreme ones. I received one, for example, writing, I want to stop to ask my husband for permission. And I didn't understand why, what's the point? And then I realized it was an application from India. And she described for her life, she first had always to ask her parents for permission, and now since, 20, 30 years, she has to ask her husband for permission. So her big shift was not asking for permission. So really, really interesting. Here, the structure was there were 3 very simple questions. What do you want not to do? How long you don't want to do that, and why is it important not to do that? And then the last question was, why are you the right person to do that? So you can imagine how when I started to read that from the Indian person, I understood in the very end why it makes sense that she was asking that. We also had an application, someone from Hong Kong who said, I don't want to make a betrayal. And so it was in this time when the political pressure went higher and a lot of activists were in prison and so on. It was really touching, some of them. But I also had an application, maybe last example, from a 10-year-old girl from southern Germany, Melissa. She's still sending me gifts for Christmas, she's great. She was writing, for 2 weeks I don't want to have violin on Monday, horse riding on Tuesday, swimming on Wednesday. So her whole week program, and then I called her mother and said, I don't want to give money for that, you want to save a lot of money, but maybe you rethink the schedule of your daughter. And what was interesting, and that was also the reason why we had these 2,500 applications, was that there was a big media attention because of the paradox that a university, which is normally giving fundings, grants for people where they think that they have a good performance, that they have good grades and so on, and we gave the grant for the opposite, for doing nothing. And it was also interesting there, the images, as someone teaching in an art university, was, as you can imagine, I like the images, what people think, what doing nothing should look like, or is looking like. And so this was one part. Second part was an exhibition in the Hamburg-based Museum of Arts and Crafts, so like the one next door. My school has a not as strong relation like yours, but historically the same relation to the Arts and Crafts Museum in Hamburg. And it was called School of No Consequences. And again, playing with this paradoxon, school normally always wants to have consequences. And the exhibition consists out of two different parts. One was that I looked into the collection, what historical pieces could be interpreted in a new way. And maybe to give some examples, the one on the image are not the best, but maybe you can see that we used existing vitrines and didn't build new ones, because they still have the brown one are from the 30s, so they're still keeping them. I like that somehow, and some from the 80s, a bit more fancy. But maybe some 2 or 3 examples from what they have in their collection. One is what you may know, Japanese technique called kintsugi, when they repair broken ceramics with a gold lacquer, very, very beautiful. And the broken ones and then repaired ones are more expensive than the ones which are not repaired, the original ones, which I like very much as a thinking. Or another one from Turkmenistan, amulets, which protecting from the so-called jinn. And the jinn is a ghost, and if you if you do something against this ghost, he will fight you, and then the amulet helps you to keep him away. And so the idea that there are invisible ghosts who could be kind of victims of our action and then fight back is something I found very interesting, especially from the background that Corona came up when we planned the exhibition and opened or not opened it, which also fits to the topic of no consequence. We have a fully equipped exhibition which was not opening for half a year. But the notion of having that our action should have no consequence became having the mask and so on in mind, and when we started to wear this mask not only to protect us but to protect more vulnerable people, old people and so on, became a totally new notion. It was really, really interesting. But also this idea of that nature is striking back somehow, or not nature, something we don't understand, globalism or whatever. So it gave this exhibition a new notion I like very much. And we also exhibited pieces which were collected in the museum 150 years ago and were never exhibited before. I found that very funny, and in all museums you have that. I have pieces I collected, and they don't know why. Very beautiful. And the second part was something like a training parcours in the school. For example, we have a photo machine on the right to make an image of yourself. You have a waiting station from a bus station to wait. These kind of things. We have a floating island with a palm tree to dream. And the piece I loved the most is the Porsche you see there. It was linked to destruction, like the Kintagi technology, the Chinese one I was talking about. Because I think that we have to do a social change, we have to destroy some of our inner structures of our ideas of what we are dreaming of, what we want and so on. And for me, personally, I grew up in the 80s and 70s in Germany, I always wanted to have a Porsche. Still, from whatever subconscious level. And I know it's ecologically not right, it's socially stupid. And even so I could afford a used one, I'm not buying it, but there is still something that wants it. I'm trained that I want that. And I think every one of us has these kind of stupid, everyone who grew up in Western capitalism has these stupid dreams. And so in this part where there was a huge hammer and you could destroy it. And it was really fun after the exhibition. It was then open for 2 months or something. It was really a crumpy thing, Porsche, because so many people bumped on it and told me later that it was such an impression for them to really go on it. And then later laying on the island with a palm tree and dreaming. So, and that was the exhibition. And due to the fact that it was Corona, one part of what I originally wanted in this exhibition, being a school, I had to have convinced some colleagues to give their seminars in the exhibition and so on, so have a school, public school. And then Corona not opening and all these kind of things, I don't have to tell that we developed an app, also called School of No Consequences, consisting of 3 different levels. One were interview with experts, the people I normally wanted to invite to teach there. This, for example, was an interview with Bénédicte Savoy. She's one of the great experts for, that's the English word, to bring back artwork from Africa, back to Africa. Restitution of stolen artwork. And so it's also a question of what is the consequence of something 200 years ago or 150 years ago. Then we have a game element. This, for example, are so-called astragals from ancient Greek, made from bones of sheep where they helped in decision-making. So different forms of decision-making. We also had them in the exhibition. We think that we make so rational choices, but we don't do. So maybe it's smarter to do it with bones. So this was a virtual version of that. And the third part were some tutorial films, where the first inspiration for me were these kind of aerobic videos from the 80s, I don't know if you know it, or Skigymnastik, I don't know if there's an English translation for that. And we made them together, Jakob and I will show now 3 of them. They're very short, and I will tell a little bit in English about what it is, but I think you can also see it. Okay. So this one is one about the stone of Sisyphus. And nachdem wir uns zunächst mit uns selbst beschäftigt haben, wollen wir jetzt unser Selbstüberschätzen überwinden. Selbstüberschätzung ist ein alter Makel der Menschheit. So that's the story of Sisyphus. You all know he's trying to bring up the stone. And I'm ending then with the conclusion that we are the stone of ourselves. Hochstapelei nicht durchkommt. Sie immer behaupten, dass man das besonders toll kann oder besonders toll ist. Und manche glauben, es tut sogar selbst. jump a little bit?
Schweren Stein den Berg hinaufrollen.
Heavy stone.
Wir tricksen natürlich nicht mehr die Götter aus. Wir tricksen uns selbst.
Oh, we're tricksing ourselves and not the godnesses anymore.
Tricksen wieder auf.
And then
Den Berg der Zukunft hinaufrollen müssen. Und wir selbst.
okay, a second one. So you see, I'm trying not to take myself too serious. So that's about utopian thinking. Life could be so beautiful. That's all we want, isn't it?
Schon immer haben die Menschen von einem besseren Leben geträumt. Und heute gibt es nicht mehr eine Universum.
So it's about futures and utopias.
Wasser, auf dem ich reiben kann, weil alles im Gleichgewicht ist.
Everything is in balance. Yeah, and then we also made a film. Jacob and I had a lot of ideas for a film. They don't resulted all in a film, but some of them are in the novel. So he's kind of a co-author of the novel as well. And basically in the film we had one scene, which is also in the novel. It's after a dinner evening with sponsors of this museum I was talking about, and it's a debate between the curator and the money giver from this foundation. And so this was one level, and like in all these other projects, like also in the app, I have this funny game level, I have this stupid tutorial film level, and I have the serious scientific interview level. We also have in the film different levels or layers, which are the cinema level layer I was talking about, and then we have a second camera team on set, which was documenting how the film is made and what people are talking off scene and so on. And we have a third layer, which were interviews with the actors. And also within the actors, we had to have different, let's say, strategies. We had to have professional actors for the curator, or in the film it's an artist, but it's the same figure, and the director of the foundation. And we have non-professional actors who were working in the kitchen and preparing or waiting that they could finish the table from the dinner. And these non-professional actors are professional activists or artists or people dealing with environmental issues. And that was very also kind of interesting to see how these two different kind of performers interact. And I will show you the trailer with English subtitle now. No, what is this? Jacob is always best helper.
Die wissen doch alles über Klimawandel, Ressourcenvernichtung, Artensterben. Alles wissen die. Nachhaltigkeit ist wiederum ein um ihre Profitinteressen zu verwerten. Und das Museum für ökologische Kunst ist nichts anderes als ein Markt.
Wir dürfen denen nicht mehr zu viel geben, sonst gehen sie nie.
Büro und machen dieselben dreckigen Geschäfte wie vorher.
Ich glaube nicht, dass wir sowas wie ökologische Transformation hinbekommen, wenn wir nicht auf gesellschaftlicher Ebene uns darüber einigen, was als sinnvolles Leben angesehen wird. Denn dass das im Moment als gelungenes Leben angesehen wird, hat ja genau zu dem Zustand der Zerstörung geführt, in dem wir jetzt leben.
Nicht mal dasselbe tun, was wir predigen, oder? Das ist alles verlogen, das ist alles folgenlos. Die reinste Folgenlosigkeit.
Was das nicht? Folgenlosigkeit?
Man konnte natürlich im Sinne der Exilien und Faschismus, Autoren sagen, ich schreibe jetzt nicht jetzt raus, das ist folgenlos, ich schreibe das für meine Labe, aber die Nazis außerhalb machen natürlich völlig weiter.
Hey, du hast recht, du bist selber schuld. Hast du noch Wein und was zu essen? Ich hab Hunger.
Wir müssen jetzt eine Entscheidung treffen, die folgenreichste aller Handlungen, damit hinterher wieder die Dinge folgenlos sein können.
It's so fucking German.
Woher kommt das denn?
Sobald ich ins Finanzamt bin, denke ich andauernd an Folgen, andauernd. Vielleicht jetzt erstmal komplett gegen Folgenlosigkeit.
Ihr seid übrigens auch dazu sehen. Ich bin auch dazu sehen. Aber ich kämpfe seit Jahren dagegen an. Aber es bringt nichts.
Der Kapitalismus hat nur eine Folge, und das ist die Zerstörung dieser Welt.
Oh, sorry.
Es gibt doch nur Konsequenzen. I like it.
Ja, wunderbar. Wir bauen. Ja.
Okay. Oops, was ist das hier? Okay, and then to some point this project was finished, and then two friends of mine from Heilbronn, a small town in southern Germany, asked me if we want to continue that there, and so we founded the Hauptstadt der Folgenlosigkeit, the capital of no consequences, Heilbronn. And this is an ongoing project consisting of different elements. Again, we have a grant for doing nothing, but the grant is a bit different than the one I have in Hamburg, more advanced. It's only for people living in Heilbronn, in the city. It's more money, it's 5,000 euro now. And in Hamburg we had a jury, a classical jury with so-called expert, whoever that is. In Heilbronn we have a very, very complicated democratic process where all participants choosing amongst them who's receiving the money. And 3 grants, and then they're testing it for 3 months, and then they're coming together again. And then there was one rule for all participants, or there is one rule, and that is if they participate, they have to follow the example of the one they choose in the very end, also for 3 months. So they all come together and choose someone whose example they will follow for 3 months. We have started that something like 6 weeks ago or something, or 2 months. You see on the left the 2 theatre makers who invited me to have one to do that, and representatives from a lot of cultural institutions in Heilbronn, because it's so interesting that many cultural institutions are participating. So we have a lecture series in the House of Literature each month. Some authors dealing with comparable issues are invited. We have a movie series once a month, a movie in the cinema. We have the public library, I will show later. We have the Kunstverein, so the local bottom-up art museum. We have the Volkshochschule, I don't know the English word for that. We have the university. So educational departments and so on, they're all offering programs on Folgenlosigkeit. It's really funny here. For example, the library, they have an empty shelf, the shelf about no consequences, and people are invited to put books out of the place they are right now, to bring it in there, to kind of change the library, and they have in the different sections, we have kind of questions like here, or is there any green capitalism, or can I read it? Well, does art have to have consequences, and so on. We have a poster campaign in the city, and you have to know, for those who are not familiar with southern Germany, this is a part of southern Germany who's well known for being very aware of money and taking care of money and so doing good business and not for spending money for doing nothing. We had a town hall event, an opening campaign where we tried to explain what we're doing there, and this is a local cheerleader group who's joining us, and a band in the background was already existing in Heilbronn, a band called The One Without Any Success. We were very happy that they participated and made the music. Not that bad, it was good music. In the city hall we have the Amt für Folgenlosigkeit. I don't know what Amt, I don't know if there exist any Ämter in non-German speaking countries. So the Department for No Consequences in the city hall, where we assist those who don't have access to internet or have language programs to apply for the grant, because the official procedure is using our website, but not everyone has access there. It's a beautiful little room in the style, you know. And I have a small film appeared on Titel Thesen Temperamente yesterday. It's in German, it's not subtitled, it's 2 minutes or something. Should I show it?
Yes.
I'm not used anymore to use a mouse. I'm always doing it with my fingers, so sorry for that. Nee. Nee, das bin ich nicht. That's the wrong thing. No. I'm looking for this. Hi, I'm Sibel, and I don't want to do things which are not good for me. I'm Susan, I don't want to waste lifetime anymore. I'm Rowan, I don't want to drive my car for 3 months. I'm Rosario, I don't want to fall in love ever again. But therefore you get 5,000 euros. It's strange, but it's real. That's this city, Heilbronn, where the ground is open. So that's the basic idea, and my partner about what should I change in my attitude in life. What should I actively not do anymore? So that's it's a funny test. 1 year capital of no consequences. That's in the city hall, in our Amt für Folgenlosigkeit. And that's me explaining that the provocation which building will help people to reflect on their success-oriented lifestyle. Yeah, and then it ends with a paradoxon that for sure we're looking for consequences of this project. And then I'm citing Tachio, the activist from the film. Okay, And then for the end, no. Yeah, for the end of my presentation, you may be asking yourself, what has that to do with someone teaching in an art school? For sure, I'm also trying to bring this kind of thinking into our art school. And I offered, for example, a seminar called, well, dumm umstehen und nichts tun, standing around stupidly and doing nothing. I invited students to stay around with me. There were also, again, simple rules. One student has to choose the place where we meet, and other students has to choose how long we stay around doing nothing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And after that we reflected how we failed, because it normally never works. So standing around in a park, near the lake, on the street. And in the last session we were standing 2.5 hours without a break. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.